they needed a rejuvenation. Because of him, they got to the Big 12 championship by hook or by crook. So without further ado, let's discuss the player profile of Mr. Ollie Gordon. Actually, let's go here. Ollie Gordon certainly is someone who a lot of people weren't expecting to break out. It's because in the Big 12, you certainly feel like a lot of teams are content with what they have and content knowing that they'll always be in the fight. But very rarely do we see someone kind of break through for them in a way like Ollie Gordon did. Because if we consider Oklahoma State last year, without Ollie Gordon, they're probably not in a position to challenge for the Big 12 championship. And I mean that because in the Big 12, you kind of don't necessarily need a star player, but they're so hard to come by that when you do get one and you do find one, you have to ride them till the end because you know that there's a cheat code in the Big 12 because everyone's so even and everyone's trying to look for the guy to get them over the hump. And Ollie Gordon was that guy. And now, in a year where the Big 12 feels more even than ever, and it feels as if Oklahoma State is in primo position to challenge for the Big 12 championship and get to the CFP, the 12-team CFP, even if they don't win, I feel as if Ollie Gordon is going to be the face of this entire offense and this team. So let's talk about why. Last year, 1,732 yards, 21 touchdowns, 330 receiving yards. Oh yeah, and a Doak Walker Award as well. Could have been nominated for the Heisman as well, if I do say so myself. Let's see. He was actually the first player, I believe, in Oklahoma State history to accumulate both 100-yard seasons in receiving yards since 1989. That is a huge stat for you to remember. In terms of fantasy performances, best was at West Virginia, 52.2 fantasy points, 282 yards, 4 touchdowns, 9.7 yards per carry. His worst, obviously, was early on in the season when they didn't really know he had. It was against South Alabama. It really doesn't matter there. But let's talk about how he's going to have to carry the torch for this team this year. Because I don't think that Oklahoma State is mediocre by any means necessary. In fact, they truly ascended far beyond what I expected of them and truly overachieved. And if Texas were, in the prime of their breakthrough, Oklahoma State could have given them a challenge. Ollie Gordon did not look like himself in that game, and I feel as if it really did not represent what this Oklahoma State season was. But the big thing about Ollie Gordon being the center of attention for this offense is that it covers up the inconsistencies that come at the quarterback position. Alan Bowman is a guy who has been around the Big 12 for many years. He's a journeyman quarterback. I believe he started off at Texas Tech, found his way through so many different teams, now ends up as the starter at Oklahoma State. Now, he certainly has, like I said, the moxie needed to be in the Big 12 because the Big 12 is not, the best QB conference. But he has come into question time and time again as someone who is not a quarterback who can lead a team to a championship. And so when I think about how Gordon-centric the offense was last year, it worries me that Ollie Gordon has to carry the load, not just because of injury, because of offensive stagnation. I think that last year proved to be one where, by hook or by crook, Oklahoma was going to ride Ollie Gordon in so many different ways. And that workload for Ollie Gordon didn't seem to impact him. But this year, it's more about finding a dynamic that fits, because all of these players, Bowman, Gordon, Presley, I believe, will be leaving after this year, who you believe are stars in the system, are going to be gone. If you want the best out of them, you can't just focus on one of these guys. You got to focus on the rest as well. If Alan Bowman doesn't improve, then it's kind of a waste of Ollie Gordon's time as well. Because if Ollie Gordon's just grinding out big gains in the run game, trying to get open in the receiving game, and Alan Bowman is just failing to keep up with him, and I think that what are you going to do in that moment if you're Oklahoma State? You can't just panic and just continue giving the ball to Ollie Gordon. It's not how this football dynamic works. You have to have balance to your system. And so, Ollie Gordon, while I still believe he's going to be a big factor in the run game. He has to be in order for Oklahoma State to be in that championship discussion. I still believe that you do need Alan Bowman to step up because this wide receiver room is still very skilled as well. Presley's there. It's a very young group. And I think that you need to milk the best out of them you can because in the Big 12, like I said, a lot of shootouts. It's going to be no different now. More teams primed to try and usurp the big guys who have already been there and already have experience playing in the Big 12. They're going to try to knock them off. And so, do you want to be big time and get wins through a balanced attack? Or do you want to fold because your offense has gotten too Gordon-centric and Ollie Gordon now feels an unbearable burden to try and carry this team to new high heights? That being said, in fantasy, I still love him. And in fantasy, now that he profiles as someone who's going to become more nuanced, it opens up different avenues for different stat lines to really pop out at you. Let's say he's a threat in the red zone this year. That's huge. Let's say he's a threat in the receiving game. He can break big carries in that way. And so the little ways that they can try and move around Ollie Gordon so that A, the offense becomes more varied, and B, kind of preserving him. I believe that will stem from trust. And so I think when Oklahoma State finds itself playing a tough team, and they know that they're going to have stretches where maybe perhaps Ollie Gordon isn't going, they have to trust the fact that they are, first and foremost, a team that isn't necessarily Gordon-centric. This team can find ways to win. They did it all season. Ollie Gordon can have his 320-yard on the ground, 3-touchdown day, any day of the week. But I think at the end of the day, the bottom line is, without variation, without excitement in your offense, by just riding one player, you're kind of stagnating things. I don't think they need to stagnate things. I think that Alan Bowman, while certainly not the best quarterback in college football, certainly has traits where he can be serviceable enough to get you what you need and get to where you want to be. It doesn't have to be pretty, but it doesn't necessarily have to all come down to his rapport with his backfield running mate. And so, when I think about running backs in college football, and I think about how pivotal they are to certain teams, because when you think about where college football seems to be heading, it certainly feels like it's heading to a more well-rounded, balanced form of attack. A lot of the teams that I think of right now, who are contending, really focus on finding that balance. It's all about timing-based anticipation in their system. It's all about continuing down the field methodically. If you're Oklahoma State, you certainly don't have the resources to do that kind of thing because you're not necessarily a top-tier team, but you certainly don't want to feel like you can't. Or you don't want to feel like you can't at least vary some aspects of the system so that more things work. And so, combining the best traits of what Ollie Gordon brings and bringing out the best traits in Alan Bowman could really be a sky's the limit moment for this team. Because players like Ollie Gordon are very hard to come by. And you don't want to, waste it all on just running him into the ground, because that's how injuries happen, and that's ultimately how offenses stagnate, like I continue to say. So trust is the name of the game here. Trust in the fact that this entire team is built around, because think about it. Oklahoma State has had fantastic defenses over the years. Mike Gundy is a fantastically defensive-minded coach. I believe that he wants the best for this team. And if he wants the best for this team, he wants the best for Ollie Gordon as well. And Ollie Gordon still is going to put up the stats. I don't necessarily think you have to worry about that. But I think he's going to put them up in a much more managed, balanced way. And so that's what I truly love about him, not just as a fantasy player, but as a real-life player, because there's so many opportunities for him ahead. But coming up next on the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast, our last segment of the week, we're going to be talking about a running back who's going to have a lot more opportunity in an offense that nobody really knows what's going to look like. We'll be right back to conclude the show with that after the break.